Oh, sorry. Oh, okay.
You just did it. I'd like to call a meeting of the Planning and Development Committee to order for Monday, June 12, 2023. Please call the roll.
Longoria.
Here.
Here.
Baumgart. Munn.
Here.
Bancroft.
Here.
Lencioni. Petrilla.
Here.
Wirball.
Here.
Fessner.
Here.
Weber.
Here.
We have no omnibus vote this evening, so we'll go right to item 4A, a recommendation to approve a resolution authorizing the execution of a 5-year refuse contract with Lakeshore Recycling. Jim?
Evening. We provided several options to the contract renewal. Obviously, our current vendor is Lakeshore Recycling. In that contract, we have the option to negotiate contract extensions. We started this process back in the winter, talking to Lakeshore and several other vendors. At that time, we found out that the sticker program, the pay-as-you-go program, was in fear of being eliminated by several of the vendors. We talked to other communities in the Fox Valley area. They were hearing the same story. We decided as a team to continue negotiating with Lakeshore, make sure we can continue that service for our community and provide the lowest rate possible. Batavia and Geneva went out to bids over the last several months. Batavia received no bids for the sticker program. Just to take a step back, Batavia and Geneva had the exact same program as the city of St. Charles. They went back out for a second time, asking the same vendors if they would provide a bid for the sticker program, pay-as-you-throw. All three vendors provided no bid. City of Geneva went out to bid, and they only received one bid from Lakeshore for a sticker program. The other bid they did receive was for a toter program only. We continued our negotiations with Lakeshore during this period. A couple of really the program highlights I just want to go over, and I'll let you kind of ask some questions. First and foremost, we were able to maintain the pay-as-you-go sticker program. So that means, if you have one bag of garbage this week, you put a sticker on, and it's only cost of a sticker. You don't have to rent a toter. That covers about 45% of our population. So it's a pretty big chunk of our population that uses the pay-as-you-go program. The other portion of it is we were able to negotiate an additional 3 weeks of the spring pickup. Currently, we have 1 free week, yard waste bags in the spring. We were able to add on an additional 3 weeks to that program. And then we're recommending the 5-year program. There is a 3-year and a 1-year. 5-year provides the city with the best program, long-term program. It's actually a 5-year and 8 months. The reason is for that, it buys me a little more time and Public Works staff a little more time. I'm not standing up here at the last minute getting it approved. Buys the state months to see what's going to happen with Geneva's contract, Batavia's contract. They just awarded 5-year contracts on over the last month. And then, obviously, the biggest thing is we were able to, by watching what was going on with Batavia and Geneva, we were able to provide our residents with the lowest rates possible. You can see we were able to come in below Geneva, and Batavia lost their sticker program. On that note, I'll kind of hand it over to the group here and see if you have any questions.
Let's start off to the right here. Question.
Actually, I think this is a good deal. I'm a fan of the stickers. I'm not a fan of the totes if I don't need one, which I don't need one. If you go on vacation for 2 weeks, you're paying for that tote, and you get no benefit. So I think this is a great idea. I think I kudos to you for doing this. I feel kind of bad for Batavia. They don't have a choice. Do you know why Lakeshore didn't do it? Didn't bid? Just curious.
I didn't dive into those details with Lakeshore. I was
just curious why they wouldn't even bid on something.
Yep.
And we're guaranteed for 5 years for stickers.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I think it's a good idea. I'm very happy with it. Thank you.
Any questions?
I just wanted to, I wanted to say I also agree that this is great for, especially for residents, the 45% that don't use the toters and are going to want to have the pay-as-you-go or pay-as-you-throw. It's really good that we have that. I also did have one question about, I noticed in the information that you provided, you said that it's not a new service, but you've got it broken out a little differently. There's a couple different things in there that are listed as hourly, so there's a roll-off container transport and collection of public dumping, or home abandonment collections. And I was just curious what the reason was that those are listed as, hourly. Is that something for like reporting or charging back to, other departments or for accounting purposes?
So it's all the above. It's usually like if we have a home abandonment, garbage sitting on the curb for several weeks, the community development team, code department will usually make an effort with the property owner to try to get it cleaned up. At times, not that often, but at times it becomes an issue where it's not cleaned up. In the past, we didn't have a signed hourly rate or a tonnage rate for that. That way we can, if I call Lake Shore, they can aid the Public Works Department. We go out, we pick up the stuff, throw it in a dumpster or garbage, or if it's small enough, the Lake Shore can come by and they can pick it up. And then we can go back through the community code development, code enforcement, collect some of those costs.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
And then the spring, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, sorry. No, it's all good. Tim, I think it's a good contract. I think it's a good program. I think the sticker thing is huge, definitely for, if residents are very cognizant of how they handle their refuse, then they can save a couple dollars. Me, I have 5 people at home, so we just get the big toter, but I like that the residents have the options. Tell me, can you update me? I just haven't heard in a while about regarding the West Chicago, the transfer station with Lakeshore.
That's a totally separate subject, so I, at this time, don't have any news about Lake Shore about that. It's not related to this contract at all.
Okay.
It's something that they're working on.
Okay.
I believe.
I know the city was communicating with them at some point, because obviously the trucks, the transfer trucks, come through St. Charles, so I just wasn't sure where they were at with that.
Yeah, and we didn't address that in this conversation, so.
Okay, thank you.
And then the spring cleanup, it says here every year, we're still gonna plan on doing it every other year, I would imagine.
It's whatever we budget. So we have the flexibility to provide it every year, but we've always historically, we've always budgeted every other year. The rates are the same, tonnage and hourly rates for that.
Okay, and then going back to, you talked about Geneva, if they don't have a sticker program, what are they doing with their yard waste?
No, they did get a sticker program. Batavia lost theirs. So
oh, Batavia, I'm sorry.
Geneva was the only one, other community that received a sticker program. The only bidder they received for that sticker program was Lake Shore Recycling.
If we didn't have a sticker program, how is yard waste collected? I guess is the question.
Yard waste, it would be the same. You still have to buy stickers for yard waste, and this is the confusion about it. Really, the biggest thing is anyone that's using stickers for refuse, they would have to rent a toter. So they would have to rent the smallest toter at that monthly rate. That would be the largest impact. I see it as a larger impact to like smaller homes, homes of more seniors or people that are living by themselves, or maybe just 2 people living in the household that take advantage of maybe 1 or 2 bags. Or people that that fly out of town for half the winter. Those are the ones that would end up having to pay additional cost, because instead of the sticker program, they would have a monthly fee in the total rental.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for doing this and negotiating what appears to be a good deal for us. I like the 5-year plan because I think it provides the best value for residents. I just like the idea that we have long-term options for our residents for the next 5 years, whether it's seniors or whatever. If their family grows, they can switch between the totes or the stickers. So I'm in support of the 5-year program. Has the industry been changing quite a bit? Is there consolidation, or what's going on with the industry?
Well, that's a good question, and I can't guarantee you 5 years from now I stand up here and say the same thing. The city, we can provide a sticker program. That's really been the biggest industry change, is really eliminating that program and going to full toters. There's some communities that are doing the pay-as-you-go toters, but the interesting part about that was like when Batavia went out to bid, all 3 vendors provided no bid on the pay-as-you-go toters. So It's really, the next 5 years is really going to be interesting how the industry kind of balances out, and we'll see if this program exists.
Yeah, that's good to lock this in then for the next 5 years, so thank you.
More comment, again, I support, as my colleagues say, this is a good deal. Thank you for your help and work on doing that. Just a comment, I guess feedback, if you will, if we could convey to our friends at Lakeshore. I've gotten, and I've talked to Peter a couple of times about this, just some feedback regarding just sensitivity to customer experience in terms of like making sure that the bins are not on the other side of the street from the person's house. Then it's not all the time, but just little feedback I get here and there. It's overall very positive, but that's just something I want to convey while I have this opportunity.
No problem. Anytime you hear that, just let us know. Just one thing I will say, Lakeshore, anytime we're talking to them, they usually jump on it right away, try to resolve it, or take care of the issue for the customer.
Completely, 100%. That's my experience. I'm just conveying on behalf of my constituents.
Yeah.
So, thanks.
It's a much nicer meeting than the last time.
Yes.
Looking for a motion in a second.
Weber will move.
Second.
Moved by Steve, second by Dave. Please call the roll.
Vogt,
Yes.
Munn,
Yes.
Petrilla,
Yes.
Wirball,
Yes.
Fester,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Kulturitis.
Yes.
Motion carries. We go to item 5A, recommendation to approve and execute a resolution with Desmond Inc. for professional service downtown parking study in the amount of $43,750. Derek?
Good evening. As the committee knows, for a little over a year and more, there's been some talk of conducting a downtown parking study, and staff is now ready to hire a consultant to do such. We issued an RFP on March 20th. We received 4 proposals or 4 bids. You can see the bids listed there. They range from about $40,000 to $108,000. The budget that we had set out for this was $50,000. Once we received the bids, we formed a staff committee made up of various departments at City Hall. After doing various interviews and looking through proposals, we are now ready to make the recommendation that we should hire Desmond as the parking consultant. Desmond is known, honestly, internationally, but does a lot of nationwide work here. They've conducted over 5,000 parking and transportation projects nationwide. The project team here is based out of Chicago, which was important to us. I think they have 13 offices around the country, but we wanted some local touch here so that they weren't too far away. They've got a vast experience in parking studies. One of the reasons why we liked this project team in particular is because they have worked on a lot of studies in comparable cities, namely Green Bay, Wisconsin, Normal, Illinois, Bloomington, Indiana. I believe in the packet I put in an example of Green Bay, Wisconsin. Another reason why we selected them, that this was in the price that we had budgeted. Just a little bit about what the parking study would be and how it would be structured. So there's really 4 components. The first part would be an existing conditions report. So this is heavily getting data on what our inventory is, what the peak occupancy is, and this is also where we would be getting public engagement. We would do a projected parking report, so looking at what development projects we have coming in the pipeline and what that would do to our parking demand here in the downtown. And then really what we're trying to get at here is recommendations for future parking improvements. So what type of things can we do to make a better parking experience for everyone in the downtown? And then we specifically called out that we think that we do need to work a little bit on wayfinding signage, so giving us some direction in that regard. There would be a public engagement process as part of this, of course, at the front end. So they would be conducting stakeholder focus groups, so talking to the businesses, residents, some of our community groups. Also, they would be open to meeting with any city council members that would like to do such. At least one open house style community meeting, an online survey, project update memos that could be shared with the city council, and then a mid-project presentation to city council. Just a few final thoughts, and I can take questions. So one, the scope of the study would roughly be what our SSA is, our 2 SSAs in the downtown. It can bleed over a little bit. That's okay. If they find out, hey, we need to look at something that's not technically in the SSA, that's not a problem. The time frame I have on here is 4 to 5 months. Technically, it could be completed in three months. However, we think that it will probably take a little bit longer. You never know what would pop up and what we would ask them to study a little bit. a little bit in depth. So with that, I can take any questions.
Maybe we'll start on this side. Dave, you want to start?
Sure. No, I read through the proposal, looks really good and within budget, so that's awesome. So just to confirm, they say that they're going to be, their Gantt chart's really nice. 11 weeks? Is that what they're shooting for? Okay. I mean, I certainly, if they're open to talking to aldermen, I would certainly like to talk to them.
Okay.
So, thank you. Thanks. That's all I have.
Yeah, I have a number of questions I'd like to ask you. So under public engagement, you have project website. Is that going to be an interactive website similar to like the bike ped study, or?
It will not be. That is something that we wanted. However, this company does not do that. And one thing that when we thought about this was that the ped bike plan, that was citywide, right? Mm-hmm. And it made sense to have some type of feature like that. This is really focused on the downtown. Okay. Where something where, doing a simple map would be just fine. Okay.
And then as far as the projected developments and growth in the community, you have a number of projects listed. For example, Lot 4, Building 8, it says the property is currently under contract with a developer, which it's not. Could that be updated? Because I don't want them to do a study based on information that's not accurate. So that's something I found there that I think that needs to be. Okay, and then the other thing is the old police department RFP. I saw in there that there's nothing noting a feasibility study that we're going to conduct. So what are they basing that study on in that area? What would they be using?
I think we want them to look at what are some of the potential uses that could go there and what would be the parking that would be required to support those uses.
So who would determine the potential? You know what I'm saying? Like, are they going to go back to the 4 plans that were rejected, or are they just going to kind of say, hey, if we do A, B, and C, or what are they basing?
No, I think we would be looking at like a low, medium, and high model. It wouldn't be based on what was actually submitted. Okay. And then I just have some suggestions that I didn't see in there. I know it's 125 pages. I tried to look for everything I could find. But could they look into maybe conducting maybe a study on a parking app? Yes. For downtown? So can we get that in, or like maybe make a recommendation, or if it's worthwhile? Second is the parking deck on First Street. Is it possible for them to explore some sort of a parking counter or gates for the garage, just to keep track of if there's any open parking spaces or not? Is that in this study, or is that's something that would be a potential solution? So if they see that that's a problem, that could be a recommendation that they come up with.
Okay, and then last thing is, I didn't see it in there. Is there an opportunity to identify the need for electric car charging stations throughout the downtown? Is that part of this study?
Again, that could be a recommendation looking at future technology improvements.
Yeah, it would be nice to see something like that in there. But that's overall, I support it, Desmond. So those are all my questions.
I had a quick question regarding wayfinding. We talked about wayfinding not too long ago, 2, 3, 4 months ago, in regards to cleaning up the types of signs we have. Is that going to be part of the study as well, or is this all about logistics of what's where, how to get there?
I think the focus is going to be the logistics of it, but I think we do want to take kind of an inventory of all of our signage, because when we have too much signage out there, things just get convoluted and people can't. It just blends in with everything. So it's certainly looking at everything with a focus on directional signage to parking.
Okay, thank you.
No, I think the scope of work covers pretty much everything that's already been brought up. I think it's all in there. Good job there.
I actually have a couple of questions. So, to the wayfinding question, it sort of builds on that. With the bicycle and walkability study, I know that that's going on at the same time, and I assume it's going to be integrated into this to some degree as well. There'll be signage that goes with that. I guess you'll have to manage the signage similarly with wayfinding. I guess I'm just not sure how that works.
Yeah, we've got 2 studies that are going to be going on at the same time. We're wrapping up the pedestrian bike plan study, and we've told that consultant that the parking study is coming along, and they know that there's going to be on not just signage, but with other things that are ongoing, there's going to be some overlap there. So it's really going to come down to having these 2 studies acknowledging each other, and that they may have different solutions or different ideas. It's going to be for staff, to kind of merge those two. Luckily, most of the committee, the staff committee that's going to be working on this parking study is also on the pedestrian bike plan, and we're kind of doing them back to back, so it will be fresh with us.
Okay, that's good. I also wanted to know if there were other companies or consultants that were sought out that had backgrounds that weren't so focused on parking garages, because when I looked into the 4 companies that were on the list here, a lot of them have investment in building garages, and I just want to, my concern is that might be the natural thought processes. We need to build something, and I want to make sure that we're looking at other things.
Yeah, we did not specifically sought out any that didn't do parking design or construction. Most of these companies did. However, I will say that Desmond did specifically mention that they're not necessarily interested in just saying you need a parking garage here. There are alternative measures that are much more cost-effective that should be explored first before we just commit to building a parking deck.
Excellent. Okay. That's all I got.
No, I think it looks great. I appreciate the study getting done. I appreciate the work you put in, coming in under budget, and really looking forward to seeing the recommendations. Thank you.
I'm fine with it. Thank you.
So, no further questions. We need a motion in a second.
So moved.
So who was that?
I'll second.
Okay. Moved by Ed, second by Dave. Please call the roll.
Folk,
Yes.
Munn,
Yes.
Trilla,
Yes.
Wirball,
Yes.
Fessner,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Lakaitis.
Yes.
Okay, item 5B, that passes. Item 5B, recommendation to approve a minor change to PUD for Burger King Meyer PUD. Ellen?
Thank you. An application for minor change to PUD has been filed by John Kaiser for the Burger King located at 959 South Randall Road in the Meyer PUD. Plans for the property were approved in 2009. Changes now are proposed in support of a renovation project. Changes include addition of a second drive-through ordering station at the south end of the building. However, the drive-through lane and the adjacent bypass lane will remain unchanged. Building facade renovations include an additional tower element, new awnings and light fixtures, also updated signage around the site, landscaping around the impacted areas, and outdoor seating. The proposed changes comply with the PUD ordinance and the zoning ordinance, other than I do have 2 minor landscaping comments to be addressed. So staff recommends approval subject to resolution of these comments.
Questions on this one?
Yeah, is this just more of a Burger King wide thing happening, or did they come out, see something, and realize something wasn't functioning well for sales, or what was kind of their reason for wanting what they want?
Sure, I believe the applicant is here if I am wrong, but I believe that it's to be consistent with the branding and the style of building that Burger King is now constructing and updating.
Okay.
I'll just say, I do a lot of traveling around the Chicagoland area and other states, and I've actually noticed a lot of Burger King seem to be having a tough go in the market right now. So I'm glad that we have a very good, viable location, and thank you for reinvesting in the store and keeping it going. Thank you.
Any other questions? We're looking for a motion in a second.
Move for approval.
Second.
Moved by Brian, second by David. Please call the roll.
Folk,
Yes.
Munn,
Yes.
Petrilla,
Yes.
Wirball,
Yes.
Fessner,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Lakaitis.
Yes.
That passes. Item 5B, Plan Commission recommendation to approve a PUD preliminary plan for River West Animal Hospital, Zylstra PUD.
A PUD preliminary plan has been filed by Luigi Randazzo, proposing to develop a veterinary clinic called River West Animal Hospital on Lot 1 of the Zylstra PUD, located on West Main Street, west of the Firestone. Proposed is a 6,000 square foot single-story building set back from Main Street behind an existing detention basin. Site access is from the circulation drive to the south. There are a few staff comments that need to be addressed in regards to landscaping, grading, and the freestanding sign location. Plan Commission reviewed the plans on May 16th and voted 8-0 to recommend approval, subject to resolution with staff comments.
Questions on this?
Yeah, I like the design of the building and support it, just as long as the staff comments are included in the project.
Questions on this side?
That's a good idea. Looks good.
Mm-hmm.
Looking for a motion in a second.
So move.
Weber will second.
Moved by Brian, second by Steve. Please call the roll.
Folk,
Yes.
Munn,
Yes.
Petrilla,
Yes.
Wirball,
Yes.
Fessner,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Lakaitis.
Yes.
Item 5D, Plan Commission recommendation to approve a PUD amendment for a grocery store sign at 300 South Second Street, First Street Development PUD.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, can I just make a couple comments first before we start this?
Before the staff presentation?
Yes, I would just want to explain something, please. Thank you, indulging me. A few months ago, I asked for some information about a potential conflict of interest due to the fact that one of the owners of the Blue Goose is a sitting council member. And since we are going to be investing city funds, incentives for this, I was looking for a legal opinion to find out if there is any conflict of interest. And to date, I have not received anything. So saying that, without a written document, I will be voting no on the next three items because I have no basis to make a decision unless I have that information.
And Chair, I'm happy to respond to that briefly. I know that Alderperson, you and I met with that, and I did say that I had checked with our city attorney, and he advised us that it was not a conflict. At that time, I had inquired with our ethics advisor to produce a legal written opinion on the ethical considerations of that. Unfortunately, at the time I asked him for that, his response was to resign from the position due to other conflicts in the area. Since then, the city attorney and I have been working to find another ethics advisor, and unfortunately, due to the nature of that work, that often conflicts attorneys out from being able to do other work in St. Charles, so nobody has been interested in taking that. So we are still working, as I have updated the council in various weekly updates regarding that search, but our city attorney is here to answer any questions regarding the ethical considerations of that, and there is no conflict with the city council voting on that, provided Alderperson Lencioni is not present and voting.
And I agree, except I want a written document to read myself. So that's my problem, my concern. Thank you.
And just, again, I understand the comment, but let the record reflect that Alderperson Lencioni is not present at this meeting and has not voted on anything that I'm aware of with respect to anything related to this now or in the past. Sure.
Thank you. The next three items are all related to redevelopment of the former Blue Goose property. That'd be 5D, 5E, and 5F. Staff is recommending that we conduct our presentation on each one of these and then do the vote. So I'm just going to kind of go through this quickly. The three things that we're reviewing here, I'm trying to simplify this and break this down. We have a sign request, we have an incentive request, and then what I'm calling a parking amendment request, which is technically a declaration. However, I think it's just simpler to say parking amendment here. Just want to, before I kind of go down the sign, just an overall look or high-level view at this development project. First, I think everyone needs to understand that we actually have three entities here that are involved in this project. We have, of course, the city of St. Charles. We have the developer, which is Fort Union, and then we have a premium grocer tenant. All of the agreements that we're looking at right now is just between the city and the developer. This is a grocer tenant that does not own its own property. They only lease it. So that requires a middle person, which is the developer, to purchase it, kind of white box it or put in what they need to kind of make it a inhabitable building where the tenant can come in and do a lease. We cannot release the name of the tenant, and that is by their own desire. They do not want their name out there at this point. There is a lease that the city has seen. It is a 20-year lease with the premium grocer, so we have reviewed it. And that's essentially the kind of the makeup between these three entities. So we are going to be talking about our involvement with these agreements with Fort Union. Just a little bit about Fort Union. They're a commercial real estate company that specializes in grocer tenants or anchors. Some of the businesses that they have worked with in other communities is Mariano's, Whole Foods, Jewel, Tesla, and Nordstrom Rack. These are just a few of the bigger name ones. And they've done projects in Chicago, Vernon Hills, Glenview, and Westchester. All these projects are available on their website. With that being said, we're going to go into kind of the first item here, which is the sign request, and I'm going to turn it over to our Community Development Director, Russ, to do this.
Good evening. This first item is a zoning application. This application was submitted by the developers LLC, represented by Fort Union, as the contract purchaser of the former Blue Goose property. Now, this application is requesting to amend the First Street project PUD regulations to allow for larger, taller freestanding sign than is otherwise permitted in the zoning district, which is the CBD1 Central Business District. This larger sign would be allowed only on the former Blue Goose property and not elsewhere within the First Street project. It would be located at the northwest corner of the property along Route 31, positioned for visibility from the north and traffic from approaching the site from Route 64. The actual sign design is based on a request from the planned grocery tenant. The Historic Commission reviewed the application and recommended approval 5-0, as did the Plan Commission in a 7-2 vote. The two dissenting Plan Commissioners questioned if a sign of this type was necessary for the property, and the applicant responded that the planned tenant and any other similar grocer would require this type of signage to improve the visibility for this kind of location. So I'd also add a comment that from staff's perspective, this property is unique in the downtown area and within the CBD1 zoning district as the only real larger box store that exists, and this type of signage is typical for grocery stores or box stores in other locations. So I'll stop there and ask if there's any questions specific to the sign request before I turn the presentation back over to Derek.
Questions?
Thank you.
So we want to get through all the agenda items, and then we'll go back and vote.
Yes. So the next item that we would like to tackle is the parking amendment. So first, just kind of a map that I have up here. I want to make sure everyone understands what is privately owned, what is owned by the city. Of course, you can see the building there, which is about 30,000 square feet. The blue portion, which is what would be to the west, the privately owned, that's 64 spaces. And then, of course, you have the green section, which is currently city-owned. One important thing to note here is that per an existing agreement, which I believe is 2007, whoever owns the Blue Goose property already has rights to the city-owned parking, specifically 31 spaces. So I know the Blue Goose is currently empty, but if there was a tenant in there, technically that tenant would have access to the 31 city-owned spaces. Nowhere in this agreement is the city actually selling any city-owned property. This would be an amendment to the declaration. So it is not a lease. There's not a term on it. It's kind of almost works similar to an easement. And move on to the next slide here. So what this does is I've kind of broken this out into different scenarios. So the first scenario I have here is the one that we're looking for, is that there is a lease in effect with this grocer tenant. As you can imagine, any grocer tenant is going to want to make sure that they have adequate parking when they're open, especially in a downtown environment like this. They want to know that they have enough parking stalls. So they have 64 parking stalls that are privately owned for customers, and what they have indicated to us is that they need an additional 68. So they actually already have the rights to 31. They need an additional 37. And you can see where that is exactly. It's City Lot B and City Lot C, or it's also labeled as Exclusive Parking Area A. With this, that would be about a ratio of about 4.32 spaces per 1,000 square feet, which is pretty in line what you would expect for a grocery store anywhere. If not, they would be requiring more, honestly. This does still allow for some public parking, and you can see that what is actually on the north side, which is public parking area A, and that would be 30 spaces. So that's kind of the scenario that's most likely, and the one that we're honestly aiming for. Of course, we do have to think about what if this grocer tenant closes, their lease is not in effect anymore, so the lease has gone away and the building is vacant. Then this can return back to being public parking, okay? So as it's used today, essentially. And this scenario is fairly simple. Now we'll kind of go into what is the third and final scenario here, which is the lease is not in effect. So the current tenant that we're looking to attract there is no longer there. They do not have a lease. But there's a new tenant that comes along. Hopefully it would be another grocery store. And they would also have some rights to parking. So they would, of course, have the rights that they already have to 31 spaces, but then they would get 15 spaces. And the reason for this is to help the developer attract another grocery store if they need to do that in the future. What it does do in this scenario, it does expand public parking. It would be now 52 spaces, and you can see that denoted on the map there as public parking area B. Some other things that we should mention here is that the developer is entirely responsible for the repair and maintenance of all private and publicly owned parking lots and utilities. Okay, so even the city-owned portion that's publicly owned or going to be used by the public, they would be responsible for that. And then another key note here is that the city nor the Blue Goose property owner could erect any type of building on the parking lot. I know that in the past, going back to when First Street was first proposed, there was going to be a building there, I believe Building 6 or Lot 6. This would essentially mean that we would not be doing that building unless there was some type of agreement in the future, but that would require city council approval. Next, I'm going to dive into the third element here, which is the incentive request. So, of course, this is just for the premium grocery store.
Do you want to take questions on the...
Sure, we can do that if you feel that we should.
Questions. Is that all right with everybody? If we go, right, questions on this side on the parking?
Just want to clarify, so the two city-owned parking lots will be easements. We're not giving away the property. We will still own the property.
We are not giving away the property.
Okay.
They would still be city-owned. I don't know if technically the legal term is easement, but that's the effective.
Great, thank you.
Yep. Moving on to the incentive request, of course, this would be just for the premium grocer premium grocer. I'm going to go through timeline first. So you look down and the first thing you see is that the opening is in spring of 2025, which is a little under 2 years from now. Not ideal, honestly. Everyone would like to see a grocer in here earlier, but that's just the reality of the world that we're in right now. One, it is going to take significant time to get this designed and developed. We know from a lot of our other projects that we're working on that lead times for construction materials are insane. Furthermore, and as we've talked to other grocers, they've indicated that it's the same for the equipment that they need. So the cases they need, the freezers they need, the materials for their deli, there's long lead times on that as well. So no one wants to commit to an earlier date by contract. On the right-hand side here, we also have the budget broken down into three elements here: acquisition, the hard construction costs, and then soft and financing costs. The total development budget for the developer would be about $10.7 million. This does not include some other things that we're going to get into. So one, the parking lot improvements. There is going to be some that we're going to get into in a little bit, and that ranges from $700,000 to $915,000. And then lastly, not really part of our analysis because it's not in the agreement because it's the tenant's money, but they're estimating that they're going to have to purchase or put in another $11.6 million into this property. And a lot of that is equipment, not something that we would incentivize, but it is additional investment into the community. The incentive type is broken down into really two types, and honestly, it's only one in my opinion. The first one would be a sales tax rebate, and then there will be a reimbursement, and that goes towards the parking improvement that we're going to go into here. So the sales tax rebate, we do consider this to be a pay-as-you-go incentive. So it is not up front. We're not doing any type of bonding. There's no grant. As the grocery store produces sales tax, then a portion of it will be rebated back to the developer. The maximum amount is $2.6 million, and then the rebate term is 15 years as a maximum. It is broken down a little bit more complicated than what some of our other sales tax rebates are. As everyone should know, that we have a municipal tax, which is 1%, and then we have a home rule tax, which we just increased from 1% to 1.5%. So just looking at the municipal tax, the proposal would rebate through years 1 through 4, 100% of it, and then years 5 through 15, 50%. Okay, so it decreases at year 5. The home rule tax is a little bit funky. It's for the first 4 years, it's 66.66% or 2/3. The reason for this was that, as everyone knows, we just increased our home rule sales tax to 1.5. Staff felt that we should retain that amount since that is going towards infrastructure projects. We wanted to capture that amount. And then in year 5, that also goes down to 50%. Based off of sales tax projections, we would actually achieve the maximum rebate amount in year 12. And if you were to look at this at the end of the 15 years, assuming the sales tax projections are accurate, the total sales tax revenue would be $8.3 million. Of course, the developer would be owed $2.6 million, and then that would leave the city with $5.7 million. Now we're going to get to the second part of the incentive agreement, which is the parking lot. So I don't consider this to be an incentive. This is just something that we had to hash out. I did take a few pictures here yesterday of the city-owned parking lot, so I'm going to flip forward here. So this would be the green portion there that's city-owned, and we have some photos here. This is not a permanent lot. This is a temporary lot. It was put here basically because we thought maybe we were going to put a building here. We didn't want to invest in an expensive parking lot. So you can see the condition here. There's a lot of gravel. It doesn't have any adequate lighting, stormwater management, landscaping, anything like that, a lot of potholes. This parking lot needs to be completely reconstructed. That kind of left us with who's going to do it. Certainly the developer and the tenant, they wanted to see this spruced up and done right. The city actually took it a step further. We want this to not just look good, but we want it to match with the rest of First Street. So that's what we had indicated was what we wanted. And then it came down to, okay, how are we going to do it? Does it make sense? We actually went down the road of, does it make sense next year? Does the city budget this? And then we perform the construction, the design. And then we ultimately decided that that would not be the simplest, where we have two people who are doing these construction projects and trying to work together. So we decided to ask the developer to do all the work up front, and they agreed. So they are going to be completing the work, and then the city would be reimbursing them when it is completed for part of it, and another part of it they would actually be reimbursed only if the grocery store opens. So the Blue Goose lot, this is the blue portion. This is actually, this has a lot of the infrastructure in it. It just needs to be resurfaced. That could cost about $150,000. We would only rebate this back to the developer if the grocery store opens. The rest of it comes out to about $550,000. You can see the breakdown there between the city lot and then the streetscape. And this was another thing that city staff actually asked for. If you go out there, that streetscape along First Street in Illinois, that is not completed. We've always waited for a building to go in place there. So they're actually going above and beyond what they actually want. The city wants this streetscape completed. It makes sense to do it now. This would actually add a little bit of parking. You can see on the bottom of the screen there, which would be to the west, that's parallel parking right now. And that would be turned into angle parking to match the rest of First Street. The estimates that the city came up with this, which is about $700,000, they're technically eligible up to $915,000 because they want a lot of cushion there, because we're honestly the ones setting the standards, and we're just not at a space right now where we can be extremely confident in those numbers. Some miscellaneous items here. If the grocery store fails to open by May 1st, 2026, this agreement is terminated completely. If the developer invests less than $10 million into this project, the city has a right to reduce the sales tax that they receive. So, for example, if they only spent $9 million on the project, their incentive amount would decrease by a proportionate amount. And one of the things that we actually like about this agreement from staff is that if the grocer never opens, which who knows, we're talking about 2 years and kind of a crazy world right now, hopefully that doesn't happen, but if for some reason they cannot open, the city does not have to give any incentive or any grant away. We would have potentially spent money on our city-owned lot to reconstruct it, but that's something that honestly we were planning on doing anyway. And then this is my last slide, benefits to the community. Of course, the number one benefit here is that our downtown area and our community needs a grocery store. I've been here a little over a year. This is probably the number one request that I get from people. Please put a grocery store in the former Blue Goose, and now we have that opportunity. With this caliber of a premium tenant, we're going to be seeing some of the businesses really benefit from it, we think, with the added attraction. And then we'll also hopefully see future development. We just talked about Lot 4 in the previous item. We'd like to see something go there. And we do have some other properties around town that we could see development pop up. Or even some spots on First Street, on the south end of First Street, we have some vacancies down there. I think this filling the space would go a long way to filling those spaces. Completion of the streetscape. Of course, on the north end of First Street, we're completing the plaza right now. This would be right in the middle, and completing it would go a long way to having a seamless First Street. Increase in sales tax revenue, I had those numbers out there. Of course, we're going to be rebating some of that, but hopefully in the long run, that's going to be better than a vacant building. And then lastly, increase in property tax revenue. This property is located in our First Street TIF. We know the kind of the story of where we are at with that TIF district. Vacant buildings, they will have the property taxes will decrease. That's less money going into our First Street TIF. So just keeping this building occupied is going to go a long way to supporting that TIF. And that's the end of my presentation, but before I do take questions, I do know that the developer is here and that they would like to say a few words. So Matt Hindy with Fort Union, come on up.
Hello. Your name for the record.
Matt Hindy. I guess before any questions, I just wanted to say it's been a real pleasure working with your staff, Heather, Derek, Russ, and Nick have all been absolutely fantastic to deal with. We've had the pleasure of dealing with a lot of fantastic communities, not only in Chicago, but around the country, and this is one of the best. Bring my kids out here to see the downtown quite a bit, as you can imagine, over the course of this whole long project, and we're really happy to be in front of you guys here at the home stretch. Also wanted to call attention to my partner, Steve Swanson of Swanson Development Group's here. Without him, this certainly wouldn't be happening either. So we're really excited to be here and answer any of your questions, concerns, worries, problems, comments.
Great. Question?
So overall, thank you for putting this all together. I like the plan, I like the program. I just have, while it's, because the process to develop is going to take a while, that in-between period of when there's going to be no activity at all, I just don't want it to look, blighted. Is there anything that you guys are going to do to just kind of keep it clean?
Yeah, I think it's keep it clean. As Derek mentioned, the next 6 months are really design. We're already fully engaged in that process with all the consultants from the grocer. We hope to, do swinging hammers first part of next year.
Thank you.
Regarding the signage, I just had a quick question. Currently right now with the Blue Goose, we have city signs, and we were talking about wayfinding and signage earlier. Is it going to be all the grocer's own signage that's going to say parking, no parking, towing, all that, or are we going to be part of that? Similar to the materials used for parking, is that going to be similar to what First Street might look like, or more of the plan of what the National Grocer is?
There's a question about the signage in the parking lot?
Yeah, right now we currently have a little mixture of, and that's the way the lots are set up. So right. I'm not expecting it to be different than what the city would normally do. I guess it was just a question of how you're going to do it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be clear. It's important to the tenant that there's a clear delineation of where the private parking starts and where the public parking is.
Sure.
The tenants, consumers, and customers will have rights to park in the public lot the same as anybody else from the public, but there is going to be kind of a demarcation line, so to speak, and that will be clearly marked within the lot.
And then that parking will be off limits after hours, I would imagine.
The parking
that's owned by the grocer, yeah.
The parking that's owned by the grocer, yeah, after hours. I mean, they're not open till midnight, but they're not open. They're open after 6 too.
Yeah, so you don't want people hanging around. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just want to say I'm excited for this opportunity to have a grocery store come back to downtown St. Charles. So thank you for considering us. I think it's going to benefit the entire community. So I just want to make a comment about that. I just do have one request that kind of echoes my colleague Steve Weber as far as the landscaping. If we could maybe just at least get that cleaned up, that would be wonderful.
We fully agree.
Okay, thank you so much.
It sounds like a broken record. Sorry. No, I concur. I mean, we represent the ward, of course, that this is in, and, we, hear chatter regarding landscaping. So you've already said it once, so I appreciate that. to keep that up. And thanks, Derek. You know, we've met several times, both of your guys' work on this. Very much appreciate it. Really excited. Wish it was a little sooner, but, oh well.
We're
Well,
gonna push
yeah.
it as fast as we can.
Absolutely.
We're just at the subject of things we can't control.
For sure, absolutely.
But the things we can control, we'll push as hard as we can.
Okay. No, that's great. I appreciate that. And I live 2 blocks away, so looking forward to it. So thank you.
Yeah, I just want to thank you for bringing this here, and thank staff for all their hard work. This is a big deal for downtown. It's going to bring jobs here. It's going to bring, I think, other businesses. That's a really important thing for the community, so I'm very excited about it.
My wife thanks you as well. But one quick question, how often are updates going to come to us in case there are certain roadblocks that I don't want to say that are unexpected do come up, but do come up in case our constituents start asking, like, how often are we going to receive updates over this? Because it is opening in a couple of years. I don't want to say a longer project, but at least so we know and properly can communicate.
I think that for the remainder of the year, don't expect to see anything. I mean, expect to maybe see some cleaned up and some limbs cleaned up and some landscaping picked up. But I think just from an expectation purpose, when we start our work on the inside of the box, it's going to become evident pretty quick. There'll be a bunch of trucks out there, et cetera. When we start site work on the parking lot, there's going to be fences up. I mean, it'll become obvious pretty quick. I think that the real frustration will probably come in, towards the end of next year, where the fences have been up for many months and everybody's like, oh, how long? Oh my gosh, it's going to be another 6 months. Well, it takes a long time to build a grocery store from scratch on the inside. And we are going to be taking it apart. You guys should expect to see a completely different grocery store when you go in there next.
Okay, thank you.
I think a grocery store is a great idea for downtown. As I stated before, I have other concerns. But besides that, looks like a great plan.
Understood. It's a complete third-party transaction. The ownership group is all private, all not affiliated whatsoever.
So my only comment is, and it's in line with what Mark was saying in terms of updates. So I really strongly suggest, and this is more for my colleagues up here who are going to be on the council, for the next few years, that you come up with an information program that talks about what progress is being done, where it's being done, what disruption is going to be at. People are just going to be all over this.
Yep.
And it puts pressure on everybody up here when they can't say something, they don't know something, they don't have any answers. And if you want to start with the right foot forward with this community, I really think that giving a lot of thought to what that information campaign looks like would be important.
I think there'll be some kind of a public announcement in the not-too-distant future once we close on the property, purchase the property, the lease goes into full force and effect. These agreements, if they're considered and if they're approved, once all of those things kind of fall into line, if they were to fall into line, I think there'll be some kind of disclosure that can happen. And then beyond that, just like I said, the process, we've all been through construction processes in our own homes and seen how long it can take, and I assure you this will be just as frustrating, but we will get there.
Any further discussion? So we have 3 items to approve, so I'll go with item 5D.
Move for approval. Oh, sorry. Move for approval.
I'll read it for the record.
Okay, cool. Sorry.
Plan Commission recommendation to approve a PUD amendment for a grocery store sign at 300 South 2nd Street, First Street redevelopment.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Dave, seconded by Brian. Please call the roll.
Folks,
Yes.
Munn,
Yes.
Petrilla,
Yes.
Wirball,
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Kulkaitis.
No.
Okay, behind E, recommendation to approve an economic incentive agreement between the City of St. Charles and SDG FTU LLC, 300 South 2nd Street.
Move for approval.
Second.
Seconded by Brian, moved by Brian, seconded by David. Please call the roll.
Folks,
Yes.
Munn,
Yes.
Petrilla,
Yes.
Wirball,
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Kulkaitis.
No.
And last but not least, recommendation to approve amended and restated declaration of covenants, conditions, restrictions, and easements 300 South Second Street and First Street redevelopment lots 6 and 14.
Weber will move.
Second.
Moved by Steve, seconded by Brian. Please call the roll.
Folds,
Yes.
Munn,
Yes.
Petrola,
Yes.
Wireball,
Yes.
Fester,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Kulturitis.
No.
Okay, all approved. We have no further agenda. Any comments from public, staff, council members? Going, gone? I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Weber will move to adjourn. Second.
Moved by Weber, seconded by Ed. All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Oh, yeah.
All unanimous.
Pokemon 22?